So, there's a big problem, Claire, of secular Quranists. Most young people...
Wait till the wind stops.
No, this is an amazing...
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, this is an amazing thing. Jewish guy over here says the wind... Yeah, finally got him a little bit on camera. Not on camera, don't be too scared. But your voice is coming on every now and then. Alright, so, yeah. Most people, 93% of men in the UK, aged between 16 and 20, are single. It's not too great for the women, but I didn't Google it, right? But it's pretty terrible. And I would say there's 3 categories of people making excuses not to be married. I can say excuses a bit harsh, but let's say, one, they're hurt from, previous relationships, and they go, never again. And then there's the hopeless lot, which the incels and the MGTOWs, the incels like involuntary celibate, and the MGTOWs men going their own way, basically going through prostitution because they don't want to pay for, what do they call it when you get divorced and you have to pay for kids and you have to pay half your salary?
I think it's called alimony? I think so.
Yeah, I think that's the American word. Is there a British word? I don't know. Something like that. Maintenance? I don't know.
Child maintenance.
Child maintenance, yeah.
Maintenance support? I think it's called child maintenance support.
Yeah. So, and then there's the apathy. It's like, who cares? Doesn't matter. Who cares about getting married or not? So I'm going to talk about those 3 things. And this part of a happiness course certainly makes people happier because if they're in relationships...
It's totally miserable. It's miserable.
Yeah, so that's what single people nowadays sound like. That was a single man. Okay. I'm married, by the way. And you're not married, you're a widower?
Yes, I'm widowed.
Confirmed. Okay. So my ideas are based on Islam's happiness course, based on Islam. Anybody can practice it. And it's very often common between lots of religions. Whoa! I mean, feels nice, but it's not good for my recording. This wind. Oh no! My mic's so good. I imagine. Anyway, so I'll quote a verse of the Quran, just an idea to share, and then we'll... It says, He, God, will set right your actions for you and forgive you your sins, and whoso obeys Allah and His Messenger shall surely attain a mighty success. In short, your mistakes can be key to your success if you learn from them. Yeah, so don't just wallow in your misery. You can actually learn from your mistakes, and you can in fact be incredibly successful. Don't consider your bad situation as a permanent thing. You're desperate to say something.
No, sorry, I just wanted to know where your whiteboard was, if you brought it there.
Sorry?
Your whiteboard.
Oh, I gave it to Dust yesterday. Dust. Yeah, I don't do that anymore. I used to do group talks, but then it got diverted in 100 different directions, never got to the end of the discussion. Yeah, I thought Speaker's Corner was about talking to groups, but I think that's an outdated way. Anyway, so let's go through number 1. People getting hurt and feeling like they don't ever want to go back into relationships, don't want to give it a second shot. Any thoughts about that?
Well, they should recover, and hopefully when the pain lessens, they fall in love again, and they carry on and eventually find someone. But I'm a little curious about...
Bye, Jewish friend.
Thank you for the ice cream.
Yeah, thanks for the ice cream. Oh, did I introduce you besides Claire? You're secular Quranist Claire, right?
Yes.
The agnostic.
Yes.
But you're promoting Islam around the world.
Well, I think secular Koranism should go around the world. Which doesn't... Ooh, that was a clue.
Oh, wow. He just left his wallet. Anyway.
Yes, because I think if secular Koranism were the new legal and moral political system, it would make everyone behave better and make everyone happier.
Yeah, and I believe that, That's why I do these talks, even if you're not Muslim. If you can pick up some of the ideas that are making Muslim marriages more successful than most, then, good for you. You're my brother and sister, and I hope you learn from it. So yeah, I suppose there's a hurt thing, but you need the motivation to go beyond the hurt. So you got Nietzsche, however you say his name, says, he's paraphrased to have said something along the lines of, if you have a why, you can get through any how. So if you don't have a why, anything will stop you from getting married. Oh, you had a bad breakup, whatever. Oh no, that's the end, because you got no motivation anyway. So anything will stop you. What do you think about that?
Well, it is an undertaking, which is why a lot of people fear it. I guess, if you look at people's wedding photographs, it's the bride who looks triumphant and happy, and the man, his face is dark, he looks nervous, So, I don't know how you looked on your wedding day, but most men look.
Yeah, I can relate to that, because since I said I can relate to it, I better finish the sentence, otherwise people will be wondering. I was knackered. I was waiting to, let's say, go to sleep, right? And they were just taking too many photographs. Anyway, carry on.
Mm-hmm. So, obviously the man sort of knows that he's got to stick with this woman, even though, she might get fat, she becomes a nag, the children are disappointing, the house is not clean, her cooking is, that could be, the horror of paying for someone who's going to just make you miserable. So maybe that's, one of the reasons why men might not want to do it, particularly in these more sexually liberated times, because this is terrible expression, isn't there, of why buy the cow when you can get the milk for free?
Why buy the what?
The cow when you can get the milk for free.
Oh, okay, sex for free or something, prostitution. Okay, so I'm going to go in reverse order, because I think I was going to talk about the apathy, like what's the point? Who doesn't matter? I think that's the core of the problem. Like, if you understand why, especially Muslims, get married, they don't just suddenly go, oh my god, I got butterflies, you can't live without you, sort of thing. It's very more
expected of us.
I'm not sure. I can only talk for myself. Well, I can try to talk for myself, and maybe a few other people, I suppose. I think I do generally think, let's say people are stupid. That's true. That's like, even in the Quran it says, don't follow the majority, otherwise you go away from the truth. So they don't really think. So yeah, sure, they just follow cultural norms. But I gotta hope people think about it a bit as well. And I think people do think about it a little bit. And they
probably think, if I don't get married, somebody will think there's something wrong with me. So I better get married, and I'm being nagged by mum and dad.
I think, okay, I'll try to say it from a Muslim point of view. And that is, if you got a good upbringing, you're going to see your parents do in a healthy relationship. And if you're a man, you just want lots of sex anyway. It's a good way to get regular sex. But also, you also value things beyond sex, which is a family, something, we're not all that basic. A lot of human beings have become basic, I would say, not because they generally are, because they just don't have any hope. They don't have any role models of how good relationships can work. They can't even imagine it, most people, So let me quickly explain the 3 reasons why Muslims get married. And it's not because they suddenly have butterflies. I'll start off with their idea of love. Their idea of love is the actual normal idea of love that you might have between brother, sister, mother and child and things like that, which is called kindness in a word. And it develops over a long period of time. And kindness is the one fundamental thing Westerners got wrong about love, which is why the relationship break down all the time, because they think love or kindness has to be reciprocated. It's like a material transaction, because Westerners become totally material. I'm surprised how needy and desperate Westerners have become, that you're walking down the road and if you say hello and the person doesn't quite say hello back or something. Oh my God, look how that person, I don't know. Or you smile at somebody and they don't smile back, or they give you a look. For me, it makes no difference. I'm smiling at people because I'm going to spread kindness. It's a teaching of Islam, by the way, that smiling is charity. And it literally is charity, because when you smile, the neuros...
People are just nicer to you.
Well, that as well, that's a smart move to do, to generally be kind and be positive, but also it's charity in a very literal sense, because if you smile at somebody and they look at you while you're smiling at them, they automatically smile. It's an automatic phenomenon, right? And then they feel happy because it fires off the happiness neurons. So you make yourself happy and you make other people happy, and it's literally charity in that sense. That's a bit of a diversion, but generally it's part of the idea of love. What is love? Kind of putting positive vibes out there and not expecting anything back, because as soon as you expect something back, that reduces your intention. And in Islam, all deeds are judged by motives. If your motive is you want something back, that lowers your reward, you can say. Does that make sense? So when I smile at people, it's completely, I don't expect anything back. I really don't expect anything back, because I know the society I'm in. We're an individualistic, selfish society. Not that I'm thinking everybody's hopeful, but they don't get how to... Like, I give presents all the time to my neighbours. I only get one present. Only one person gives a present back, which is not secular, reformist Jewish guy, right? So anyway, so I want to get... So there's love. Now we define what that is. But what is the point of marriage? Number one, before any physical whatever, is spiritual. What do I mean by spiritual? We Muslims, and I can prove it through my other talks that I talk about, the other classes I do, spiritual basically is the essence of what makes us truly happy. It's all the intangibles that make us happy. So you can't see love, but love is what we need. Connection is what we need. There's a great book by Johan Hari. He talked about the lost connections. He's written a book, like 9 missing things. Like if you're disconnected from your work, disconnected from people, and all these things. You can't see these things. These are all spiritual values, by the way, right? So essential, a very basic need or connection that we're missing is one-to-one spiritual connection between other people. Spiritual idea. Yeah, being spiritual is very important. But what do I mean by spiritual in a relationship? Everything is your journey towards becoming at one with God. Maybe that sounds a bit weird. Does that sound a bit weird? I'm a big fan of Star Wars, and we get the idea of, like being at one with the Force. Have you heard of that phrase?
Let the Force be with you and all that.
And people have a sense of that's a peaceful state, and it's actually a very powerful state. And the Jedi, actually, I think a lot of, from my little bit of research on Star Wars, it takes a lot from Islam. Like the Jedi were the Jalaba from Morocco, and they have the same sort of spiritual values, that they have no ego, they no passion or something. So it sounds a bit weird, no passion, but they're very calm, and they're purely of service. And then when you do that, that's another talk I want to do at some point, which is about passion, how to be passionate. That's a true way of being passionate, which is counterintuitive for Westerners who are all very into very obvious forms of pleasure. But true passion comes from being selfless, and then you become connected to everything, and you become very purposeful. And purpose is the purpose of meaning is the key to passion. So when you get married, you're living a very, as in the Muslim point of view, so non-romantic way. When I say non-romantic, people get confused because they don't understand that romance is a term. It's a very modern idea of you feel butterflies, you have a soulmate. It's all very magical. There's no evidence behind it, right? So the Muslim love, like I already said, is kindness, compassion.
Compatibility?
That's a way of maintaining a relationship, so that is important. That's why a Muslim prefers to marry a Muslim, because we've understood how it works. And we don't want to marry somebody who has no idea how it works, because it's not going to work. So the truth, if I try to keep it really short, because I keep extending how long I'm saying, is to become a beautiful person. And you become a beautiful person by going through spiritual practices. A beautiful, true beauty is kindness, selflessness. Like when you watch a movie and you start crying because the hero did something amazing, so selfless, right? That's real beauty, not like Botox in your cheeks or whatever, on your bum, whatever it is. That's not beauty, right? It might be beauty for a certain level, and a certain level that needs to be gratified in a relationship. I mean, like, there is some degree that's important, right? Sexual love, but it's not going to fulfill you. There's loads of people like Russel Brand and whoever who are famously having sex with loads of people. Like Russel Brand, I say, because he 2 years in a row he won some prize by the Sun magazine or newspaper for being the person who had the most sex with the most number of people in 1 year. And he said, now you can see he's kind of reformed in many ways. He's only got one person he's relation to. He said it used to be like eating ashes, having sex with lots of people, meaningless sex. So, I mean, all these diversions, I think they're important to clarify what's important in relationship, because I think one of the reasons why relationships are failing, because they don't understand love, they don't understand what's important, they're confused, they think sex is everything. Do you know what I mean? So what have you understood by what I'm saying? I mean, do you understand?
Yes, of course I understand what you're saying, and I think in the context of marriage, it's not great sex that should be the criterion by which you choose your long-term marriage partner. Is that what you're really saying?
It's not a criteria, but I want to clarify that people in long-term relationships, and I do a whole class on how to have good sex. It requires long-term relationships. Otherwise, you might as well do it with your hand or a tree or something. It's something inanimate.
And obviously, if you're having sex with the same person, eventually you'll get better at it. Well, maybe if it's a stranger...
Not automatically, but if you have the right mindset, and Islam teaches you that, yeah. Because a lot of people fall out of relationship because they have completely opposite mindset of what it requires. But yeah, sorry, carry on.
And obviously you have to be patient with each other, and maybe you're more inclined to be patient with each other if you understand that you're supposed to value your spouse, and even if you don't particularly like him or her, you understand that to end the marriage would end you up in disgrace, I suppose. You're the person with a failed marriage. You chose the wrong person, and that's why you're divorced. And how are the children going to turn up? There are all these other things that might stop you from just walking up.
Yeah, I'm glad there's some level of disgrace left, but in a broken society, never mind broken families, people don't care anymore. They don't have that stigma anymore so much.
Because not being married, not being a married parent is no longer a disgrace. In fact, it's actually it'll get you more benefits.
Yeah, and actually some people think it's a feminist thing to do, to get divorced. I'm free, I'm happy. When you're not happy. Even
women who get quite good settlements from their husbands, they also regret it, because they think, well, perhaps he was the best one I could have had, and I've just divorced him. And I think you are. The whole idea is that when you're married, you should feel you have the confidence to be yourself, and that person can't just walk out, I guess. I mean, not obviously, you're not going to be too horrible and disgusting and, criminal and whatever. You're, maybe the person could see you not looking so good in the mornings, or maybe lose your temper, or whatever. But you're supposed to put up with them.
Interesting. I'm trying to kind of win as many people as over before you know.
Well, ideally, you should be able to win the government, but the government doesn't care about marriage.
I've no hope in the government, so I'm not a blamer. I'm a self-blamer, and then the last people I put any hope in is the government. I think too many people have too many excuses. But I mean, I will come to this situation the government created in some ways by essentially robbing men of all their money through divorce. But that'll be a second thing. So, what is it? Okay, there are 3 key reasons why Muslims get married. I talked about the beauty. The other 2 are comfort and protection. And this is based on the verse of the Holy Quran, which uses sort of poetic words. They are a garment for you. And a garment, the word used, is something... It's descriptive, let's say, beautiful. It's not any rags, let's say, right?
They cover for each other.
Right.
That's the expression. It's in the Muslim idea.
Right, exactly, yeah. So
cover each other's faults.
They cover each other, yes, that's that as well. That's true. That's part of the beauty in a way. So there's the comfort, which is the physical. You can say the sexual, but that's not the only thing. You will see, like, the people who don't have relationships, including especially women, I would say, they become very bitter and angry because they don't have that comfort, and because they feel left out, which is genuine. It's normal. It's a normal human thing because human beings need companionship. So that's the comfort side. There's a hadith I have to check out, but I'm sure it says something along the lines of men and women give not comfort, I can't remember, something along the gentility side, right? Softness, I think that was the word. So that's one thing, and we know that's true. And then there's the protection, which is moral protection. So you could call it physical protection as well. There's the moral protection from men protecting themselves from going find lots of prostitutes and stuff like that. So they've got an outlet of a normal physical need. And women themselves, rather than screwing around, they could do, And also that women are easily abused as well, so they need protection from that in many ways, without getting too much depth. But they do need a lot of protection as well. So those are the 3 things, but then people might go, I don't care about that, because a lot of people just don't care about any of those things. They don't care about society, they don't care about having sex with lots of prostitutes, and I suppose the reason why they don't care about it is very short-sighted attitude, because they don't realise they're more likely to have an STD. They're more likely to be bitter. I know a lot of people who say, you know what, we're not going to get into whatever, relationships. They're quite happy with prostitution and stuff. But those people, they're going to be lonely because blood is thicker than water, right? Some people go, oh yeah, like the Jewish guy here, he had a gay uncle, and his gay uncle had more friends when he died than his dad died, or something like that. It's like these are just one-off examples. Maybe some weird situation. Maybe his gay uncle had loads of money or something. You know what I mean?
Or if you die young, you'll get lots of people at your funeral. I mean, that's just one of the things of dying young, or soon after your retirement, I think. But if you died 80, there won't probably be that many people turning up.
Yeah, all your friends will be dead anyway, right? Or they'll be so dead, like, if they're 78, they'll be like, what? Who died? I don't want to be too rude, but you know what I mean?
I thought he was dead, I thought he was already dead, that's often there.
But people, I sometimes I don't think people logically think these things through. So that's what I'm explaining. It's like, you're going to be, the only people when you're old who are going to care about you are going to be your kids and grandkids who are aware enough. Do you know what I mean? Don't depend on your friends.
Yeah, because they'll go, or they'll, not be able to help you.
Yes, that's so important as well, the help. So there's a lot of reason. I think it's very hard sometimes when if you don't believe in God, nothing works. Though that's a very basic problem, because you have a very short-term view of life. If you don't believe in God, it's like, I'm all right now, kind of attitude. What do you think about that? Because you don't believe in God, and yeah.
But you don't. There are all these religions in the world, and all the religions in the world are about pushing people into marriage. You know, all the 5 world religions who eat pork, don't eat pork, eat beef, don't eat. You know, they all do that, and there is that is the purpose. I think. I mean, that's why they're still around, because they do that.
But the reason why they actually work is because of belief in God. They're underpinned by that. Otherwise, none of it would work, because all these religions require a lot of sacrifice. Marriage is a lot of sacrifice, but like even in Islam, Prophet Muhammad said, essentially paraphrasing, he said, marriage is half of faith. Why is it half of faith? Because you have to practice half of like the 700 whatever rules to be able to stay married. You need a lot of patience and loads of good values to stay in. But sacrifice by itself is not a tempting thing. It's only tempting when you say the sacrifice makes you a beautiful better human being, a more free human being. It sounds a bit strange. When you sacrifice, let's say, buying an expensive car, you actually become freed from needing an expensive car. And it's the same with every spiritual value. Every sacrifice is a step for greater freedom and inner peace and more happiness. Far more happiness than drugs can give you. Lasting happiness as well. So maybe I'm trying to give the picture is that, and maybe it's so obvious in many ways. Like for Muslims, if you go to a Muslim country, right? So what I was going to say, what was obvious is that marriage makes you happier. Being lonely makes you depressed. I mean, I could go statistically, I can go, oh, you know, the biggest killer in London is loneliness. I keep saying that every other video, right? That's one statistic, but a practical way of doing it is go to a Muslim country. There'll be very few people who are not married. Okay, and what's the beautiful result? You go out literally at 12 o'clock at night, maybe because the weather's nicer as well, right? And people are playing with each other, talking to each other, just relax. Oh, no, not even that. This is a beautiful picture. You're going down the motorway, highway, we're going to call it in American, and all the sides of the motorways are lined with little circles of families, and they're all smiling, and they've just got tea and some seeds. And that's everywhere. All the parks are filled with their grandmothers as well. And it's really wholesome, it's beautiful. Nothing like the zombie apocalypse which we have in London. Really, we do have that. We don't have to wait for zombies to come. I don't say in a hateful way, but there's a great movie called Warm Bodies. It essentially makes fun of Western lifestyle, where they go around and they basically, in a very clever way, say that this is what Westerners are like. They're unable when they go, like when they talk about the conversations when somebody goes, "How you doing?" That's what, and those are the real conversations. They're just, even if you go to a football match, they kind of make fun of the lack of real communication there, right? And instead of that, have a beautiful conversation where people are being kind to each other, right? People don't understand that because people think happiness is from getting stuff. I'll tell you, just getting a free lollipop is amazing. It's worth much more than tons of money. It really is. Not for me, sorry. Let me clarify that. When I go to a shop and my kids are with me and the guy there goes, "Here's a free lollipop for your kids." And that's a normal thing. Do you know what I mean? And I don't care about the lollipop. I can buy 100, 1,000. But a free one is different. You know? It's all the connection. So people are missing something because it's become so distant to them. Any thoughts about that?
Well, I think it is group socializing that makes all these things clearer. You know, if we're just mixing with people our age, our peer group, then you don't get the intergenerational interaction that makes these things obvious, I think. So the fact that Muslims and traditional societies socialize in a more intergenerational way, makes them aware of more things than Western teenagers socializing with their peers in their gangs, obsessed with the same kind of music and the same kind of clothes and hating everyone else who's not like them.
Yeah, so you're pointing to two opposite ends of a spectrum. One sort of a degeneracy of gangs, and gangs tend to form when father figures are missing. And statistically, if people don't know, you massively increase your level of criminality amongst young men if they don't have father figures. And on the other end of the spectrum, we're talking about when you understand husband and wife relationships, then you understand families, then you understand multi-generational families, and going back to the statistics, because hopefully some of you might value the statistic, there's areas called in the world blue zones where people live the longest, the most centenarians, or something, however you say it, right? Okasawa, what's that place in Japan?
Oh, right.
What's the place? Okawama? Yeah.
Okinawa?
Yeah, I think that's Okinawa, right? And many, like somewhere in Spain, no, Italy and stuff like that, where people they have multi-generational families. That's essential for long-term living. And it kind of makes sense. When you're really old, you need some help, right? And you're not going to get very good help from paid labor. They really don't care about you. They just drug you up, in old people's homes. That's not smart. To think that they really care about you. There's one or two nice people out of 1,000, right? So that's me trying to explain as well as possible why you should get married. But I want to whiz through the other thing, like the hopelessness category. The incels who want to get married and they can't get married. So they might say, oh, that's great. Yeah, of course, we want to get married, but we just can't get married. Okay? And why can't they get married? It's because apps like Tinder only serve for prostitution. So if people don't understand, you might think apps are really good. They link everybody. No, they don't link everybody. They link 4% of men to most of the women. Everybody else is just sidelined. What's the word? The Chad, right?
Yeah, the Chad.
Yeah. So that's the incel talk. They've got lots of names for different things. So then how do we help them? And also, how do we help the other category, the other category of disenfranchised, the MGTOWs, the MGTOWs, the men going their own way. Yes. So there are two different sort of categories. The incels they just feel like they're too nerdy, not cool enough to have sex, basically, and a long-term relationship. And I want to try to start giving short answers. So the short answer is, if you're a Muslim, what you have is community-based relationships. And I say if you're Muslim, if you're an Ahmadi Muslim, you're much better off, because the more you actually have true communities, the better. Because a lot of Muslims, I think, is slowly breaking down in the West, and they're having to go through apps like Muz or something. I can't remember what they're called. And I met a convert. He got married, and then 2 weeks later had broken up.
Oh.
Yeah. So, and he said, he actually did a video, and he said, "Don't go through this app called Muz." Whatever it's called, something like Moose, something like that.
What went wrong for him?
He said that she was interested in materialistic things or something like that. Just wanted money, something like that. I can't remember what it was. Something weird like that.
Right.
So I met them. I met the two when they were together before, as soon as they got married. But anyway, so yeah, some sort of materialistic attitude is creeping in even amongst the Muslims, and even amongst the Ahmadi Muslims as well. There's a whole,
Well, yes,
whatever.
Women to kind of make a judgment about your career prospects, and obviously, or even if she didn't, her parents would want their daughter not to marry a poor man.
Yeah. So since you mentioned that, so I will kind of explain. Okay, first of all, there's a saying of Prophet Muhammad that he said, a man chooses a woman based on 4 things: wealth, family, religion, and looks. You should marry for religion, right? That's very important. Why is it important? First of all, you can't marry a young man who's starting off his life for his wealth. If you do that, you only marry 50-year-old men. That might work for some women, but generally, it's not the best way, because, he'll be dead when you're, in 20 years' time, your kids will be with that. No, 30 years' time, your dad will be dead really quickly. It's not the best. It's not the perfect way, right? But also, it's gonna create a lot of very frustrated young men as well. Very bad for society to only focus on the old people. Yeah, and it's supposed to be a spiritual development anyway. You grow as a human being. You need to. There's so many wrong words. There's so many reasons why it's bad to marry for money. Your children will be spoiled and useless. Yeah, I've seen a lot of spoiled, useless children. They're really pale and they're kind of not capable. They're very spoiled. They always expect everything should have been done for them and life's unfair sort of thing. You know what I mean? You become really weak. So it's not a good thing anyway. Yes, so marry for religion. And you were saying some other stuff, but I can't remember. But yeah, so anyway. So, to solve the incel problem, community marriages are much better. You need the human touch. And you need a spiritual touch as well. So the spiritual touches go for spirituality, not for has he got a square jawline, because that's what I think what happens on Tinder. Like if you're 6 foot, square jawline, a lot of money, right? Which is a very small percentage, something like that. Yeah, and also the square jawline thing and all these kind of things. In short, without trying to sidetrack too much, basically, broken people look for broken people. So basically, that's what Tinder connects. Like short term, like if you are a person who grew up not having a father figure and stuff like that, then you won't feel like you deserve a long-term relationship. You'll self-sabotage. This is what I've understood from the studies, right? Which makes sense, I think. Right? What do you think? Does it make sense?
Yes, I think so, because if you never experienced watching your mother and your father, engage with each other and have a relationship for a long time, then you don't think you can do it because you've never seen it.
No role model. Yeah, it's very hard to envisage something or imagine something you've never seen. Yeah, it's true. And you need to see in detail as well, isn't it? The nuances and how they were patient over so many arguments.
They manage each other.
Yeah. You can't see it from a movie that lasts 5, 10 or 1 hour even, because it doesn't demonstrate all the tiny things you have to be patient about, So it's very, good to have an example. So, I'm trying to, and then the other thing about the community marriage system is background checks. What do I mean by background checks? Like, if you have a working community, everybody knows everybody, right? You can't lie about yourself on your profile. You can't just make up anything you want. Because that's the problem with dating system. You just make up anything you want. So it's a real system. You've got a third party called a matchmaker. I had a matchmaker, it was a man, and he was going through this, and he was very smart. He was really smart. He knew people. Like, he knew me. He knew what I was like. I didn't have to say anything, right?
Oh, it was a male matchmaker that found you your wife, was it?
Yeah.
Oh, right. I didn't know there were male matchmakers. That's a bit sexist on my part.
No, you're generally right.
Uh-huh.
You're generally right that it's women who are naturally interested in this kind of thing. So in the match, when we have our annual convention, we've got loads of people meet up then.
Right.
And it's usually like all the there's a tent where there's a man's side and the women's side, and all the noise on the ladies' side, and then they just give the final decision to the men. And they go, all right, and the men go, yeah. But there's kind of like different kind of groups or something. Let's just say that I was lucky. I was in the Khalifa's kind of list or something of people to get married. So my wife was abroad. Maybe that's why she was on that list, and somehow I got on this particular list, and he was his chief matchmaker. He's a very smart, subtle, quiet guy kind of thing.
I'd love to interview him for my channel.
Yeah. I'm not sure if you get many words out. He's very quiet. He talks with his eyes, kind of thing. He knows, like, he just watches people. He lets everybody else do the talking.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, it's like you need a third party who's neutral. Do you know what I mean? So that helps. That's the benefit of the community-based system, the human system over the app system. Because maybe there's an app system that might be able to work that incorporates all of that, but I don't know how, because right now they don't. They really fail completely. So that helps the incels. Then how do you help the MGTOWs, the people who say they can get people, they're rich enough, whatever, but they don't trust people to stay in long-term relationships. They're scared they're going to lose all their money, because when they get divorced, the woman gets half of the money and all this kind of stuff, right? And suppose there's two things there. There's the trust.
And the law.
There's the law, yeah.
Change the law.
Change the law, yeah. So just so you know, the Islamic law is kind of, it's not very, very clear, but it's got an intention. It says, send them away handsomely, but not basically so you get robbed. You don't rob yourself. So you're not cruel. You give them enough money, but you don't have to give them half of your money, because that's over the top. And that could be encouraging divorce, because I think, what was it? I think I'm trying to remember the number. Do you know, most divorces are started by women, and it's about 80%, 85%. Do you know the number?
I don't know. I think two out of 3 marriages end in divorce, something like that, or
more, about 50% marriage is divorce. But I'm saying, what percentage are initiated by women? Most of them.
most of it, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was about 85%, something like that. Yeah, in the UK. Yeah. So the legal system encourages divorce.
Yes, and unfortunately, even for men who don't agree with feminism, they don't want to campaign on this point, because actually a lot of their people aren't going to marry again, so they don't think it's relevant to them. But actually, you don't want to have a society in which most men are not married, or most parents are not married, but these people don't seem to care.
So, okay, what are the issues about men choosing not to get married because of... Okay, so I don't want to repeat things, but if you don't get married, you're not going to grow up as a human being properly. You need to know how to be in a committed relationship. Otherwise, you'll be a lonely individual.
Yes, you'll have a very lonely old age.
Yeah. And you don't know how to give and take. In any, like, you'll be increasingly lonely, because you say, I don't need, like, with other people, like men as well. You're like, you don't agree with me? Bye. And most people are lonely. That's the result. That's the actual result. It's not a theoretical idea. The Westerners are very lonely people. So there's that. You don't develop as a human being if you understand that, God is real. And so a tiny bit of reflection would, result in that, to realizing God is real. And not only that, people like Viktor Frankel will tell you that you need a meaningful life. Meaningful life means, doing things that are selfless, including being part of a relationship. That's part of it. And then, also, you cannot have a community. Okay, how do communities and united communities form? They start with, at the most basic level, 2 people getting together. And if they have the patience to get together, then they might have the patience to have children. the circle gets bigger. Then they have the patience and the understanding of how to be in a community, the few streets, and then it gets bigger and bigger until you get to the nation. But I love it, as Andrew Tate said before he became a Muslim even. He said, if you don't have that, it's cracked right down the middle. Everything breaks apart. And that's so true. So there's so many reasons. Now also, if you really like blaming the world, the government, so the reason why you cannot stand up to a few of these elites, because it's only a few people controlling, pulling everybody's strings. So it's busy. No, busy. Okay. So it's only a few people pulling everybody's strings, and the reason why a few people can be controlled by, everybody can be controlled by a few people, is because they're individuals. But if you can form a society, a real society, a community that works together, and then you could say in that community of 1,000, whatever, like the Ahmadi Muslims, where thousands of people, say, that guy is good, vote for him. You could get anybody you want into power, and you'd know they're good people. You don't get them into power because they're just your side. That's the wrong attitude, because then you'll be ruled by, you continue to be ruled by bad people. You need good people, because you can forget their manifestos. Everybody makes manifestos and breaks them the next day, right? So you actually need good people. So there's so many reasons, but people don't see them because their vision is very short and selfish. So you need the reasons, you need the mechanisms. I've talked about the mechanisms, which is, community. And then, what do you want to say about that? What do you think about, let's say, community-based matchmaking relationships and arranged marriages? If you arranged marriages, doesn't mean forced marriages, mean arranged or
you can
helped.
Arrange be a marriage when you're ready to get married. It doesn't mean forced. Well, obviously in a community, you can check everybody out, and somebody will know about the reputation and the history of whoever, and therefore you are less likely to make terrible mistakes and marry somebody with a terrible, history in mental illness or whatever.
Yeah, that reminds me of one of the reasons why marriage, so many people are single, and not just for young people, lots of older people, is because they had such a bad first experience that they just think that's it. There's no way. All relationships are terrible. And so we've got to get it. If you get it right first time, that's a really good thing. And how do you get it right first time? Back to the background checks. And it's not just like that person is not mentally ill. We're talking about how spiritual they are. And that word spiritual has been abused. Spiritual is not how you feel. It's how you act.
Yes.
Not Christian spirituality, which is I just believe I'm good, you don't have to do anything. Not all. There's a few Christians who believe you actually have to do something to get to heaven, right? But it's not that kind of that kind of weak idea of spirituality. Just practice, do good things. That's spiritual.
You treat people well.
Yeah. So you need to the background check will be, is this person a regular part of the community, does good things? Because that demonstrates he knows how to be a good person. That demonstrates he knows how to be in a marriage. These are all basics, Yeah. Any other thoughts?
Well, I was thinking of this. Well, I believe it's a young man. I've never met him, but it's one of those people I meet online, and he was basically saying that even the attractive women he meets, he's an American, they're promiscuous or mentally ill, and he's not interested in them. And he's saying, yes, even the attractive ones, there's something wrong with them.
Yeah.
And I think promiscuity and mental illness are probably linked.
Oh yes. So Jordan Peterson describes is psychopathy, because people don't really understand what psychopathy or being a psychopath actually means. A psychopath is somebody who's emotionally detached. It's actually very smart of them. CEOs have that description, right? And that's actually a genetic thing, but you can develop a trait of being detached. And this is well known.
Having a conscience, I think, isn't that what people mean when they say, somebody's a psychopath? They actually don't care if they've murdered a whole bunch of people, and that's because they don't have a religion, because if you have a religion, then you know what you're not supposed to do, even if you cheat and go against the rules, but you would know what you're supposed to do. But they say psychopathy and sociopathy is on the increase, and they're talking about it like it was some organic phenomenon that they can't explain. And I'm just saying, well, if nobody has a religion, then they'll do whatever they like if they can get away with it.
Yeah, it's another expression of individualism. You just don't care about anybody, right? And you do have a conscience, and your conscience is going to make you depressed. It's not that you lose your conscience, it's there, but you just can't sleep well at night. That's why everybody's on drugs, taking antidepressants, right? So yeah.
And I think the usefulness of a religion is, okay, even when your parents have a religion and you're brought up in that faith, you can be a horrible person, but the horrible person will have to pretend to believe and practice the things, and the people around him will notice that actually this person is a liar, he's a cheater, he steals, but because they have some standard with which to judge everyone. And if this person is always telling lies, always borrowing money, never returning it, then you're soon found out, even if you pretend to be a good person.
So there's two things there. There's the cultural norms, and it's good to set some cultural norms, because not everybody really thinks through what their behavior is and the meaning of life and all that kind of stuff. So for the average person, even in the Quran, it says don't follow the majority, because they'll lead you away from the truth. The Quran, made by God, who created people, and most people are very average and they don't think, right? So they should be controlled by cultural norms. And so it's good to have religious good cultural norms, rather than no cultural norms, where you could just be divorced and have no children and it doesn't matter, right? It's all, the standards just get lower and lower. And then people try to meet those cultural norms, and also it's good to know these sort of red lines. It's like people are clear about what's wrong and right. When you don't even know that, it's a very slippery slope. Just goes downhill very quickly. And then the last bit, I just started from the basic thing, and now I'm kind of ending with it. People are hurt.
Yeah.
So why do people get hurt in the first place? Because they fell for this idea called romantic love. Romantic love is, everything will be fine when you find the right person. And that person is essentially God.
Yeah.
No, when I say essentially God, like, they treat a human being like God.
Yeah.
On a pedestal. Because, people don't realise it, but that's what they're doing. Like, they go, oh, she's perfect. No. Or he's perfect. There's no such thing. It's a human being. Every human being is a million miles away from perfect. Yeah. So we need to get away from that. There's
idolatry.
It is idolatry. Yeah. There's a great psychologist who's kind of getting popular at the moment, Sadia Khan. I was talking to you, and do check her out.
Okay.
She's saying a lot of things that are common sense for Muslims, and then all the Westerners going, wow, it's so true, oh my god, you're a genius, and all the Muslims are, yeah, obviously. And one of the things was just when you, I think she's a little bit wrong in this particular thing, but it's a lot of men, she said it in a slightly wrong way. This is one thing I agree and disagree at the same time, because she's half got it right. She's kind of getting a bit westernized, and she hasn't got the best example in herself. I don't think she's married.
Sadia.
Yes. No, she is Pakistani, raised in Dubai or something like that, and raised in England in a private school or something, one of those, so a little bit rich. Sadia, yeah, Sadia Khan, Khan, and she goes something along the lines of, there are a lot of men, especially, let's say wealthy men, that because they have very few relationships with women, they idolize women, and they become really nervous when they're talking to women. They go, "Oh my God, that person's so," you know. So she said that, but then her mistake is that this might be interesting for you. Says you can't. She said you can have friends that are women, and I disagree. You might say, "How can we're friends?" But I kind of do purposely keep a distance, right? I'll be more friendly with men that I know, right? And we're more like, we're friends, but in a very useful, technical way. You're my sister, which is more than a friend, in a sense, right? I want you to become a Muslim, so I want you to get married and all this kind of stuff, right? Because these are real practical things. But I'm not casual friends with any lady, you know? So Claire has put me through to loads of really useful people. So I'm using Claire, just to be clear. But
it's always good to be useful.
Yeah,
I mean,
but not in a bad way.
A political ally.
Yeah, that's right.
A political ally, a political associate, and I think these relationships are kind of different, but in a way they it's nice when people instinctively do what you want them to do without you asking. They think of it, they do it, and I find it very satisfying.
Yeah, it's very
really satisfying as well. You know, when they do things without, you know, that's just so perfect, and it's all because you both have the same direction. You want the same thing, and common goals, which I think would work in any romantic marital relationship.
Yeah. So like we've been talking for like an hour or something, right? And I don't go, please Claire, can we spend another minute? Because you're aligned. We're aligned in our goals in many ways, right? And then we've lost the live streams as well. So the final category, the hurt people, and so the hurt people hurt because they idealized or idolatry. Basically. What's the word? Idolized, yeah, idolized women or men, the other sex, or whatever. And so that, and also they made a million other mistakes, which is they didn't choose well. And people don't realize that they don't choose well. I know there's really smart business lady, I probably mentioned it before, like her relationships keep breaking down. So you can be smart in one category and be really stupid. Yeah, exactly. Like Elon Musk is a really good example. Or like loads of failed relationships, but really smart technically. So don't mix up the two. What were you going to say?
Yes, my late father said that a lot of very beautiful women have tragic love lives, and he didn't say why, but I think over the years I worked out perhaps why they why it is like that for them, and I think it is because they're so beautiful. Men throw themselves at their feet, and they don't choose well, and they're actually kind of blinded by the choice and choose the wrong one for the wrong reasons. Well, you know, a plainer woman would only have, you know, very few men, you know, being interested, and she would have to choose more carefully. And maybe that's a reason. Maybe it's a curse to be too beautiful if you don't know how to use your beauty. I mean, if you are yourself burnt by the consequences of your beauty.
Yeah, I think most things are double-edged swords, right? Like nuclear power, great for power, but also really destructive, right? And lots of people have different challenges. So one person's challenge might be they're good looking, and you also, for a man, could go the wrong way. They might, you know, I don't know. There's all sorts of different issues people face. People get hurt because they choose badly, but also they don't get over it, which is really the aim of this talk about getting over your mistakes.
Learning from them. I mean, what else are you to do with your mistakes than, other than to learn from them?
Yeah, you haven't you're not really alive if you're not making mistakes. If you're playing it so safe that you haven't made mistakes, you're not alive, and you lost by default. You've already lost. You're not winning by not making mistakes. Not that I recommend people making mistakes. They're better mistakes to make, I would say, rather than falling in.
Avoid the last one that you made. Don't do it again.
Yeah, and so I started with a verse from the Holy Quran which says, Allah will set right your actions. Basically, fix them. And then it comes to, in the end, was like, you will have a mighty success, which is true. Anybody who learns, they really learn. And there are some people who learn better because they made mistakes. There are some people, like Muslims, I find a lot of Muslims who are born into Islam, they don't really value Islam because they didn't see all the tragedies of having an alcoholic dad. But people who come up from outside Islam, they go, wow, this stuff is amazing, right? So things are a double-edged sword, like your privilege of being born a Muslim means sometimes you don't value it. The fact that you weren't born a Muslim, you're unfortunate. I don't believe in the word unfortunate. I think everything's planned. But if you're unfortunate enough to not be born Muslim, you might be the one who values Islam better. So yeah, things go round like that. So to overcome being hurt, you need to have a reason, and that's all the reasons we talked about. I think I'll end it there. Do you want to say any last words?
No, I think I expressed all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you.